Hello, everyone. Everybody who is in the meeting. I see there's quite a few people. My name is Stefana Kozan. I am the alumni officer at IHS. And we are joined here today by our 3 alumni speakers for the Career Path webinar. I would like to ask you to say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from, if you're a current student, if you're maybe a future student, and just say hi. Let us know which country you're in at the moment. If you're joining from a very different time zone, like some of our speakers, very different time zones, I appreciate you taking the time. We're glad to have you here with us today. Yeah, this is a webinar we're organizing for the first time. So we are happy to look into career paths after IHS and see what our graduates are doing after they finish the study program. And we hope to show you quite different perspectives from everyone. We're just trying to give you a glimpse of what it might look like after graduation and what steps you have to take in order to get to your desired working spot. I wanted to give a little bit of time for anybody else to still join, because most of the time, people take a little time to make some coffee, make some tea, and so that's why we are still a little bit lingering. I also want to say, if you have questions throughout the panel, you can type them in the chat or in the Q&A, and then we will pick up the questions after. So I think I want to also maybe give a little brief intro about our institute. So for everybody who's here the first time, because we don't know exactly who's joining and from which at which stage you're at in your involvement with IHS. We are an Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies in Rotterdam. This webinar with the career path mostly connects to our master program in urban management and development, for which we now have 2 tracks, so urban environment and climate change and urban socio-spatial transformation. And further from these 2 tracks, there are multiple possibilities to tailor your journey into the program. If you have specific questions about the program, I would encourage you to use an email. I will put the email in the chat, because the webinar is more about career paths. I think it would be best if the questions we stick to are more related to the content of the webinar itself. And if you have questions about the program, admissions, or any other things, I would advise you to reach out to the email I'm putting in the chat. Let's see, just a little FYI. All right, and our panelists today are Melody, is a senior land planner at Ministry of Lands, Urban Development, Housing and Public Works in Kenya. Welcome, Melody. Chiharu from Japan, she's a consultant at EY. And Diego Restrepo, he's a water resources management specialist working with World Bank, and a consultant at the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development in Colombia, and also co-founder of an NGO called Riparia that he will probably tell you more about as well. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here today and for sharing your experience. And I would like to invite our speakers to also introduce themselves briefly. And you can start, Melody and Chiharu and Diego.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for creating time to come over. As Stefana has said, my name is Melody Lijoodi. I work as a senior land use planner, or sometimes people call it urban planner, others physical planner. We have so many names, but I'm a senior land use planner at the Ministry of Lands here in Kenya, in Nairobi. and I'm very excited to be here. Part of also what I do is I also run an NGO that tries to advocate for marginalized communities in terms of policies and so on. And I'm an alumnus of IHS, where I studied, well, urban management and development, but I specialized in strategic urban planning and policies. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you, Melody.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diego Restrepo. I'm a civil engineer from Colombia. I live in Bogota. I did my first master degree was on water management and on water science and flood risk management at IHE Delft, there in Delft. And then I did the master of urban management and development. I did the track of urban environment, sustainability, and climate change like 3, 4 years ago, and it was a very nice track that gave me a lot of tools related to nature-based solutions and urban environment. So I had the chance like to join both masters during my career, and now I work at the World Bank as a short-term consultant for a project that I will tell you later. That is pretty nice about water security in Bogota. I work also in the Ministry of Environment of Bogota, working on public policy. And I also had an NGO that is called Riparia, that is a foundation that is looking to harmonize water security, climate change adaptation, sustainability, and nature protection.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Diego. And Chiharu?
Hi. Yes, so this is Chiharu Koyama. I usually work in Japan, but now I'm on a business trip to the Philippines. In UMD, I also specialize strategic urban poly. Wait, what was that?
Planning and policies. Yeah.
Yes, planning and policies. Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. Class of 2024, and I joined EY right after the graduation, 2024, 1.5 years ago. And now I'm in a team work mainly for public sectors. When I say public sectors, I mean our clients. So the payers who pay us is the public sector, but who we actually support is usually the private companies in Japan. And now I have 2 projects in hand. One is global one, the second one is much more local. For the global one, our client is JICA, doing ODA, OD, Official Development Assistance. So there are 10 JICA selected companies, and we work closely with them to help them search for the business opportunities overseas in the developing countries. So that's why here I'm in the Philippines. And then for the local projects, our client is also again JICA, but it's much more domestic. So Japan is a country has a lot of social issues. Sometimes people say that it's a leading country of social issues. We have shrinking population, we have much less labors, and the economy is also not really good. And then those issues hit the rural areas the most, of course. So sometimes we go to those rural, not very rural, sometimes it can be just small size city. We help them to revitalize the place or find a business, both internal and also external from the area, to solve the issues that area specifically have. And I'm now very happy about 2 bonus points that my current role brought to my life. So first one is that the project and I are in a very win-win relationship. For the global projects, I can utilize my background from IHS. And for the local project, so seeing what's happening inside Japan, like in the front line of this social issues country, was one of the reasons why I came back to Japan. So I'm very happy about that. And the second bonus point that I can meet my classmates from UND, class of 2024 in their local countries during my business trip. So now I'm in the Philippines. About last week, I was in Indonesia, and I actually had fun with 2 alumni. And yeah, that's also part of fun about my work. Thanks.
Nice. Thank you so much. Since you got ahead already and told us a little bit about your current projects, I would also like to ask Melody a little bit about the type of work you do because you work in a government, in land planning, and in the public sector. Maybe you can reflect a little bit on what insights from your study program, how do you apply this in your how did it help you navigate the type of work you do in the government, and also maybe reflect a little bit on the challenges and how you adapt to those and how you use your insights. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a very heavy loaded section. So basically, like I said, I work as a senior land use planner in the ministry, and that's the national government. So basically, Kenya is devolved where we have national governments and local governments. And in the national government, what I do is policy making and plan preparation for national or regional projects. And so basically what I do is divided into three. One is plan preparation, where I do land use plans to assign uses on land. The second one is in policy making and policy review, where I review policies that relate to anything on land. And it's not just land administrative matters. It can be any sector. It can be education. It can be health. It can be whatever it may be. Right now, I'm working on one in the maritime space. So basically, it's whatever it is that can be domiciled on land. I make policies on that. And also the third one is on advocacy. So basically in advocacy, I will divide that into two because at work, I do that in terms of being in the national space. We are the planning authority. So we advocate for marginalized communities. We advocate for, well, just for a lot of issues at a national scale. And so basically at a personal level, when it comes to advocacy, I do two things. Number one is I'm a co-founder of the Kenya Young Planners Association, which is an association that brings together all young planners like myself to ensure that young people are involved in the planning processes in the country. And the second one is A Voice of Inclusion, which is an NGO I run with some of my friends from my undergrad, where we ensure that people from marginalized communities are involved in policy processes. So some of the projects I do is like the Marine Spatial Plan, which is the first ever in East and the country, in East Africa and in the country. I also do national spatial plans. I also do, but right now I'm working in one that's a maritime spatial plan. So basically, at a very high level, that's what I do. I also sit at regional committees in disaster management. So that's a very good segue to my second one in terms of insights from IHS, because when I went to IHS, I was only focusing on land matters and so on. But then again, I remember we had a unit on resilience, urban resilience, and it caught my eye. And after leaving IHS, I decided to focus on disaster issues and make my forte in that. So immediately after IHS, especially after doing that one unit on resilience, I decided to focus on that. And that's mostly what I've been doing recently. So I formulated a lot of the first in terms of disaster risk management in the country when it comes to policies. I also sit with IGAD in the regional and the African committees that deal with disaster risk management and basically advocating for urban management and advocating for land use in that space. In terms of challenges that I've faced is that one of the greatest challenge is I think I've been the youngest in a lot of spaces that I'm in, and trying to raise your voice on issues, especially when you're advocating for young people and you're advocating for marginalized communities in spaces where people are older and have old-fashioned systems, it becomes very hard. So it's very interesting because one of the things that I do is I record, I wouldn't call it a podcast, but audios. And I reference a lot of things that we studied in IHS. Like today, I was referencing the glute game. I don't know if a lot of you did the glute game. Yes. So I'm planning an event where we're going to use the glute game to try and advocate for new techniques in handling land issues. So I have a regional committee meeting coming up with Eastern African countries, Kenya, Uganda, and so on, that I'm going to include the glute game. I'm recording, like I said, I'm recording videos. And one of the things that I did also that brought people together into embracing technology and young people in decision making is we did, and I know Chiharu, I'm not sure if you did it in 2024 when we were doing urban policies, is that we were reading and presenting. We had interactive presentations of the books that we were reading, and I presented one of them on the Right to the City in a regional platform. I think I'll find a photo of that. And so slowly we are trying to incorporate new ways of thinking. So it's not just the old way of looking at plans and policies that I learned in IHS, and I reference that a lot, that we are doing currently. So in terms of challenges, that's the biggest challenge I've faced. But slowly but surely, I'm trying to incorporate some of the things that I learned there in these spaces. So yeah, that's just a nutshell of what I do.
Thank you so much. This sounds really, really amazing. I seeing that you mentioned your experience. I would also like to ask Diego because he also works with the government in some capacity. So maybe you can compare contrast. I don't know. You can also reflect on this. I think that would be really interesting to find out more about your role and the type of projects you work on, and maybe also reflecting how how the insights from the study. I know you already studied a while ago, but it would be interesting to find out how this connects to your work, and also how you work with such different stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you. It was very nice to hear Melody's story because my experience has been like very similar. And I am also like trying to scratch a little bit of things that I've learned in the master, and to bring them also to the public policy has been like very useful. But first to tell you that, yeah, my first, like, let's say, my background, and my first master degree was more focused on very technical issues related to water, like hydroinformatics. So yeah, that gave me like the kind of, let's say, like the technical strength of what the things that I'm doing. But the master of IHS was very rich, like on all the background of public policy and understanding like how public policy should be applied and works, and learning about urban complexity, governance, participation, data analytics. That was something that for me was super useful because that's not my original background. My background is more engineering, and this master gave me this different view of policy on governance and participation. So that was super useful for me. Um, so yeah, my experience in on the World Bank has been like more focused also like on the technical aspects of the water security in Bogota. We suffered from a huge water crisis in 2024 here in Bogota. We almost reached the day zero, the same day that was reached by Cape Town during their water crisis. So we were in a very difficult situation, and the World Bank helped the government like developing a water security strategy for the next years, like trying to understand how the city should develop like all the water system um, in the future. So that was a very nice work to do. Again, it was very technical, but at the same time, it has all these stakeholder engagement part that was also super interesting, and it helped me a lot. Like all the insights that I got from the master of IHS. Mm, then after I have been working on this water strategy for the last years, but then I like at the same time I started working on the Ministry of Environment, and I started working on on the development of the national water policy. Um, and it has been very interesting how all these aspects and all the things that I learned in the master related also to urban resilience, as Melody was saying, and nature-based solution for disaster risk management was super useful for me because I'm in charge of the risk and climate change part of the water policy. Um, and during our master in IHS, we have a very strong part on urban resilience, on disaster risk. I did also my thesis on nature-based solutions for disaster risk management. I did like a kind of relationship between reforestation and flood risk reduction, like the relationship between nature, natural capital, and flood risk and water and yeah losses, damage losses on cities. So, and that was also a very important part. Like all these learnings, I got all these teachings to my to the develop of the water national policy, and also on this part of risk and climate change, and also all the part of climate change was also very strong during the IHS master degree. Mm, yeah, so basically that from the two things that I'm doing, but also with Riparia, that is the NGO that I'm starting. We have been like working on Riparia, like I've been working on Riparia like for the last 2 years with other two partners. And we are working on environmental education and nature-based solutions. So also the master was very useful, like giving me like all these backgrounds, the background about nature-based solutions for cities. We try to work also on environmental and on urban solutions, environmental urban solutions. Um, so the part of stakeholder engagement and all this work that is very let's say is very visible during the master. I've been trying to apply all of these here in my city, in Bogota. So trying to work with the government, trying to work with communities, and trying to create like a kind of cohesion between communities through the nature-based solutions and solutions in the urban environment and on the public areas of the city. And in the environmental education, also like trying to we're trying to a kind of education that is not just based on science. It's based on science, yes, but it's based also on a kind of mindful education and mindful like experience in the environment, like trying to bring kids to nature and understand and make them like feel nature and trying to know nature and enjoy nature, and in that way they can grow like being some kind of adults that care about nature because they love nature. So we are trying to do that with Riparia as well. So basically I have like these three three different perspectives of the work that I'm doing, and the three of them I've been able to take the different aspects of the master of IHS that has been very complete, as you heard also on Melody experience.
Thank you, Diego. I would actually like to follow up with a question about these different roles that you have, because I think it connects really nicely. Many people, many students, I think almost everyone, they want to be purpose-driven. People, yeah, believe it's something, they have a passion. Usually that's the nicest way to go about your career, because then you never really lose motivation. But also when thinking about impact, if you want to make an impact, yeah, you want to know also where to focus your attention. And because you also work in different sectors and with all the different hats, what advice would you give to somebody trying to, yes, to position themselves in their career, and maybe they're not sure whether to start in the private sector, public sector, or maybe they want a career in the public sector, they don't know how to start or how to leverage what they can do to make a big impact? What would you advise them? terms of balancing. So basically balancing your purpose-driven mentality and your passion, and then also trying to make an impact.
Yeah, I think I can pretty much relate with this question because I also had very tough time deciding my path when I before my graduation. So the advice I would give is that maybe two things. One, just simply thinking about only yourself. If there's no one who would advise you anything, what you really want to do, I think just following that should be enough. And second advice is that being a consultant might widen your path. If you cannot be super sure about what you want right now, then if you join a consultancy firm, there are always pretty much diverse opportunities for you to try out anything you want, only within one company. So yeah, that's true. That's our the two advices I would give.
Thank you. Could I also ask Diego and Melody to reflect on this question? Because I think it's maybe something that everyone can resonate with. Whichever one of you feels ready to speak.
Okay, I'm gonna give a different kind of thinking in terms of the context in which I'm at. And the first thing about marrying passion and impact is doing, and I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but doing whatever it is that you can do in the space you are at, even if it's not bringing in any monetary reward, because what happens is that you're creating visibility, you know, and especially if you've just left school and you don't have any work and so on, but you have a passion and you're very intentional about your passion. I think it wouldn't do much of an impact if you wait around to get an organization or a platform to create impact. So for me, I think one of the things I did was to start an organization and to also start the Kenya Young Planners. And at that time, I already knew my passion and I was creating very grassroots impacts. And that's what led me to my jobs that I already have right now. So basically, it's trying to use the resources you have and taking low hanging fruits and implementing your passion to create impact. And a lot of times the visibility is going to create a causeway for you as you're looking for a platform where you can make money and get an organization and so on. So basically, that's the advice I would give.
Yeah, very nice what Melody just said because it's something similar that I was going to say. Uh, because I've been as you saw my background has been like very on the private sector, then in the private sector, on the public sector, and in the NGOs. So I've been trying like to touch all of these sectors to see where I can have more impact. And now I've been thinking on moving on and trying to go further and enter into politics and try to reach the council of the city of Bogota. Um, and that's a very different path. And I was thinking that that can be like a very impactful way, like to apply what I know and what I've been doing. But just want to tell you a small story that happened last month, and is that I attended a climate and nature leaders retreat in Mexico. I was invited by an organization that is called Global Optimism, and it was pretty nice because the CEO of the organization is Cristiana Figueres. I don't know if you know her, but Cristiana is a world authority on climate change. She was the executive secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, 2010 to 2016. She was the architect of the Paris Agreements. So she's a person that knows a lot and she has a lot of experience. And I met her there. I had the chance to meet her and to ask her exactly that, like what could I do? Because I've been working on different sectors, and now I was thinking also to go into this election, let's say politics and yeah, like to enter to the Council of Bogota. So because I thought that maybe there I can have like a really impact, like a really strong impact, like doing something for the planet, because we were there in that retreat, like thinking and talking about climate change and trying to really to yeah to release a little of this pain and this anxiety of all we have about climate change. So I thought that maybe there I can have more impact. So I asked her, because she is also a person that she has a lot of experience in the private sector, in the public sector, in the politics. She was there in the United Nations. So I asked her exactly that, and what she told me was that she told me exactly what Melody just said, that choose what you feel, that it moves you like from your heart. Yeah, really, when you choose something that you love to do and you really are into it, that is going to have a change, and that is going to have the strongest impact. And for sure, it's going to have the strongest impact on the planet, or what is your what is moving you to work. So in that moment I really learned that I just have to stop like looking for where I can have the more impact, and where is maybe the sector that I can have the strongest impact, and just do what I love to do. And that's what I'm trying to do. No, I enjoy a lot the NGOs, but I enjoy a lot also to work on solutions, like on with the World Bank, like trying to work in very impactful solutions, like for long term. But I also love like the public sector, when I'm working on public policy, that I also know that has a lot of impact. So really, like the advice is, do what it moves your heart, and do try to do what you love to do. That's it.
Thank you so much, Diego. Because there's a question in the chat about so one of the questions I want to pick up on is, what does the career path of a sustainability consultant in the field of urban development looks like? Will new graduates need to become analysts and researchers first? Maybe a question that would be interesting to reflect on is, what kind of skills do you need? I mean, everyone from their own role, because you have different areas, different thematic areas, and different roles. But maybe it's a good question for all of you as well. What kind of skills are most valued in your work? And if you were to apply for your job today again, how would you prepare? How would you prepare for your role? What skills do you think are most valuable, and what kind of things can you learn in school, so to say, and what kind of things do you learn for yourself? And maybe reflect, also, do you need to be an analyst or researcher first if you work in sustainability, or can you just be? What baggage do you have to bring to your job in terms of skills? Anyone? Popcorn round.
Maybe I can give a little piece of advice to Naisha's comment first. So I myself is not a sustainability consultant, but of course there are sustainability consultants in our firm. So what does a career path look like? I would say usually there are two ways, or like two types of sustainability consultants. One is work for the accountant part. So there are more and more companies, they want to what do you call that again? Visualize their ESG activities, and for those fields, accountants plus sustainability consultants are the best option. And the second path is normal business sustainability consultants who has knowledge about sustainability, but mainly just work for the companies who want to develop their sustainability strategies. So speaking of the skills, for new grads, yes, analysts and researchers are the first step we have to take. Then come back to Stefana's question, what kind of skills usually we should have as a package. For consultants, I would say hard skill wise, I would say financial modeling or project management. So those skills might not look exactly like what we did in UMD, because in UMD it was more for public workers, in my opinion. So close to financial modeling, if you know bookkeeping, if it will be a very strong point. Being project management, know more about project management, it would help you dealing with multitask. And soft sides, I would say experience and enjoy the diverse background in UMD would help a lot. So for example, in my job, only with the Japanese side, there are already 3 stakeholders, like we consultant team and our client, public sectors, and the private enterprises that we actually support daily. And we all speak different languages, yeah? And when we go out to those destinations that the enterprises want to develop their business, for example, Philippines or like any country, can be anywhere, they have their own cultures. For example, in most cases, people are not really on time. But if you have not experienced diverse background, diverse culture, then you might think, oh, those people are lazy, but actually not. It might because of the traffic. Yeah. So that's a very common issue we have here. So enjoy and get to know more about the people around you in UMD would naturally grow your skills to get prepared for the career.
Thank you. How about Melody, Diego?
Okay, I can go with a fast question about the sustainable urban development consultant. I think that was the question. And so for me, I am not a consultant, but I sit at the national and regional government where we hire them or we look for them and recruit them. And one thing I can say we look out for is that no, you don't have to be a researcher or an analyst, especially in our context, in the urban development context. I feel like what you need to do is to prove exactly what Chiharu has talked about in terms of project management, in terms of systems thinking. Are you able to prove that you have systems thinking in your portfolio? What skills have you bagged? I'm going to talk about skills after this question. We look at, are you or policy into actionable information or analysis. So basically, it's not a linear path. I know that was the traditional way, but right now, what basically we're looking at is your portfolio and what you're able to prove that you can do. But much more, are you able to demonstrate that you have projects and you have project management skills and you have data or policy analysis skills?
It may be a little internet connection. Or is it me?
Sorry. Is it good now?
Yeah, I think it's okay now. It just froze for a few seconds, so maybe you can
Okay.
repeat the last sentence. Sorry.
Okay, so I was saying like right now we are looking for an sustainable urban development specialist in a project I'm doing. And one of the key things is their analytical skills. Are they able to do CBA, cost benefit analysis, data analysis, and so on? So just to answer that question, there's no linear path about being a researcher or an analyst. It's just being able to demonstrate that, one, you have those projects in your bag, and two, you're able to translate this data or policies into actionable systems. In terms of skills that the starter that we did. The starter
So
that we did,
maybe
I
you can go back
remember.
to in terms of skills because you froze again. Just to
Oh my goodness,
I'm so
what's
sorry.
going on? I
It's
don't
okay.
know. I'll have to change
Let's
my
try again.
network after this. But yeah, in terms of skills, especially in my context, you remember when we did starter in IHS, I didn't know how big they are on that. At things like GIS, that's ArcGIS, ArcMap, and so on. Anything that will do data analysis or geographical analysis is very important in my context. And also project management, like Chiharu had said, is very critical. So basically, those are the skills I can think of in a blanket form.
Awesome. Thank you. Diego.
Yeah, from my side, maybe there are so many things there, and I think that during my career, like first I started like very from the quantitative perspective of how to analyze data. So that was my first background, and that's also because I'm an engineer. So the beginning of my career was very focused on quantitative analysis and data, and also the GIS part for me was super important, and also allow me like to do like a different kind of analysis of data on urban on and yeah land change analysis and all this stuff that was very focused on engineering. But then with the master in IHS, I we were trained like also on, on qualitative analysis and data analysis, and trying to understand how these research methods that are more focused on the social science. This was super useful for me because it was another different perspective of how to analyze data, the data. So that other perspective was like a new way of trying to approach to different kind of problems, and I think that that's very valuable. Um, yeah, so of course all the development of the career of each person is like a step by step development, or let's yeah, like process. So yeah, it's very important like to first to try to master a little bit like these very specific research methods of data analytics is very important. um, like this GIS that give you like a different perspective also of how to analyze different kinds of data. That's very important in order to like to develop a very strong like background for the career. And then after that, I think that for me was very important to have all these different perspective of of uh, of how to how to explore or to analyze like or this part of urban complexity and governance participation. That was also that was another perspective for me. And as I'm telling you, Amma, I have a background in engineering, so for me that was like a very new part in my career, but it was also very useful to try to get other kind of research methods. And during the master was also very interesting and nice how we were analyzing uh, like scientific data, and how we're analyzing like different kind of how to how to check like different kind of papers, of scientific papers, and try to get like different kind of information from different perspective of different kind of research. So that was also very useful, and has been very useful on the public policy development, because there we have also to take different kind of science perspective, like in order to organize those data, and trying to end up with with a very structured and solid um, policy development during my work on the Ministry of Environment. So So I think that, yeah, I think that is very important to create first like this very strong background on data analytics and research methods, and also GIS is a very strong tool for that. So yeah, basically I think that's my advice for that.
Thank you. We're slowly approaching the 1 hour time. I want to ask again the participants if somebody has a question to put it in the chat. And there's already another question in the chat that I want to ask to kind of reflect on as we get closer to closing. And I would like to ask all of you to reflect on maybe your path and like the maybe some milestones or some key turning points. So not just achievements, but maybe turning points would be the stepping stones that maybe were more definitive to decisive to your to your growth, let's say. So what kind of opportunities or actions or in people you met or projects you did or steps you took brought you closer to where you are, and maybe shape this as a little advice to our current and future students. Anyone can start. Yeah.
So for me, I've been working only 1.5 years. So for me, I'd say studying at IHS was a big, how to say, a very definitive to my career, experience to my career. So since I did my master in IHS, so at that time I already knew what field I have my passion for. And so a very common thing in Japanese company is that for the first 2 or 3 years, you can be assigned in any project, any unit. You can work for anything in that company. But in my case, since I already knew that I wanted to do something about urban issues, so right after the couple of months of training period, I applied, but I reached out those people in the public sector team, or the team work for public sector, that, hey, I did this, and I'm very interested in that, and I want to work in this team especially. And so that's why I've been working only in this team for 1 and couple of months now. So that's more or less more than 95% of my working experience. So yeah, that's the turning point for me.
Thank you, Chiharu.
Okay, I hope this network will be better. But as it relates to the stepping stones, I'll combine that with something someone asked in the chat about our path after graduating IHS. And for me, it's been two. Number one has been LinkedIn, I think. I started posting on LinkedIn because before IHS, I was a blogger and urban planning. I had an urban planning blog. But then again, I thought to translate that into LinkedIn, and I've met a lot of people who have approached me through LinkedIn and given me opportunities. And in that space, it's just been, for me, it started as a way of putting out articles and just basically what's in my mind, what is it called, in my field, in the urban planning field, and so on. And so it opened up doors to so many opportunities that I never even had an idea existed. And the other one was, remember when I told you after IHS, I started a new path in disaster risk management, especially after learning about resilience. So this was like starting a new career path, if I may say. And so what happened is when I went to one certain workshop, I was so green about the disaster space. But then again, someone approached me and they realized that I was asking so many questions. I was very interested in learning and knowing. And that particular person exposed me to people in different countries, exposed me to platforms where I'm sitting with other national leaders in Africa. And so that also opened up a door. And they told me it was my teachability or wanting to learn kind of skill that's due them to me. So those are the two stepping stones that I'll say came to me. So to answer even that question in the chat box, it's just going out there, being audacious, and hoping things align. So yeah, basically.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much, Melody. And Diego, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I think that to maintain like the connections and the contact with your classmates is very useful. More when you are in this international environment where you have people from different backgrounds, but also people from different cultures. And sometimes we realize that we are trying to, or in many cases, we are trying to solve the same problems in different countries with different contexts, but sometimes there are very similar contexts and things that we can learn from each other. So to maintain like this connection and contact with all your classmates and your colleagues. For example, for me, it has happened that I have one classmate that he's from Germany and he works in Germany, in Munich, for an NGO that is called 2811, that they work on education for about climate change. And right now we are applying for different funds, like with Riparia, with my NGO. We are trying to apply for different funds with like doing some kind of partnerships with the company where he works on, that is 2811. And so we are still I'm working with some classmates, and in for example this classmate that I'm talking to you about from Germany. We have been working a lot and trying to check for different opportunities. And it's pretty nice because he's there in Germany. He has access to our kind of funds. I'm here in Colombia. So here in Colombia, on the global south, we have some kinds of very interesting projects for funds that are there in Europe. So I mean, like these kind of exchanges of experience and to try to work together in order to work for similar projects is something that is very valuable, and I'm trying to do that like with our classmates and with our colleagues that I know that we are working on very similar things. And also, for example, Melody and I, that we are working on public policy. We can learn from each other, from our experience, our perspectives, how we're trying to solve different issues. And so that's something that you are not going to, I mean, you can get only from a kind of master degree and of experience, an international master does, that like this one here that that we are talking. I mean, like we just had the chance to do. So so yeah, I think that for me it has been very valuable. But yeah, I think that the important thing is that to try to maintain the focus on what you like, what really want to do with your career, and then things are going to move, and for sure things are going to align, and you are going to end up doing something that you really love. But to maintain connections is something that I really recommend to do, and also to take advantage of this master. I think that's one of the things can that can last for a long time, is to your classmates and your colleagues and the people that you meet during the master.
Thank you so much, Diego. There's one question in the chat. We'll take this as the last question. So, after graduating from a master's program, for someone interested in policy making, is it realistic to enter government institutions or consulting directly, or are there usually other stepping stone roles first? So can you, if you want to do policy making, can you just directly go into government institutions or consulting, or should you do something else first? Can you just be there? How do you
Get into
there?
it. Okay, I think I'll reference what Diego said about when it comes to career paths, they're very much contextual and so on. However, what in my experience in policy making is that government is a very broad blanket in terms of giving you opportunities to meet a lot of organizations and a lot of projects. So in my context, once you're in government, you are able to interact with so many organizations, so many projects that you would otherwise not be able to interact with in other contexts. So however, we know that getting in government depends on the politics of where you are at. So if it's easy to get into, not easy, but if it's a straightforward kind of path for you, I would recommend getting into government, because for me, having even the UN being domiciled in Nairobi, I've seen that they seek out a lot of government policy makers because of the type of projects that we do. Like I said, right now I'm working in a project that's the first in East Africa. And so it keeps your portfolio active. But however, that doesn't mean that you close off any other path that may come about. It's very much contextual. But in my experience, government has really broadened my portfolio in that way. It's like hitting two birds with one stone.
Yeah, maybe I can add a little bit about that, because for me also, like, the public sector has been like very, I mean, I have learned a lot, and the perspective of public policy is a bit different than consultancy, because there you have like a broad like perspective of how all the institutions work, how they are all connected. You start to understand like very deeply how all this the how the structure of all the government, all the institutions. For example, in the water policy is very interesting how you touch like almost all the sectors of the government. No, so it's pretty nice how you start doing all this map of of institutions, for example, in my case, related with risk management, but at the same time, the risk management is related with the housing through like yeah, to the water development and the water of the cities. I've been working on also on the one thing that that this government called land planning around water, and is like trying to develop like and to plan to do land planning, but based also on water availability, water security, and risks related to water. So in that term, you can see that you have, I mean, you start to see like all the you have this perspective of land planning like from water, but at the same time you have like to see and understand how also policy land policy works, but also how risk policy works, and to try to connect dots. So that's something that you can only I think that is easier, and not easier, but is more possible to get this perspective from the public sector than from the private sector. When you work on consultancy, you're very focused on like to reach a goal and to try to solve a specific problem. But from the public perspective, you have this huge map that you have to try to understand, and it takes a lot of time to understand how your country works now, because each country is based on one constitution. The constitution, it has like different let's say yeah, it has a structure that you have to follow. So yeah, I think there are two different paths. I think the two of them are very valuable, but if you want really to like to understand and work on public policy, is much better if you try to go directly to the public sector, because you have to understand that you have to learn a lot of things first before you can like end up like with solutions. You have to understand how all the government and all the structure of the policy works in your own country.
Thank you, Diego. Yes. Any other takes on this?
I think we already crossed the time.
If you would like to still touch upon it, you may please give a brief answer. That is okay.
Oh, okay, so I'll give it briefly from the current business consultant. I I'd say if you are interested in policy making and you are in a developed country, I would not recommend being a consultant because there are not many more new policies have to be made, right? So there are much less opportunities for consultant to get involved in. But if you are in a developing countries, then since I also work with developing countries' governmental bodies. So I can see that they are still refining and their policies on a daily basis. So I believe there are much more opportunities.
Thank you very much. I think that that concludes our encounter today. I want to thank everybody so much for joining, especially thank you to our speakers for making time today, for waking up early or staying later or pausing your workday for this. And I very much appreciate it. And I'm sure the attendees also are happy to hear from you and learn from your vast experience and from all the insights you shared. For those wanting to follow up, you can email course inquiries at ihs.nl if you have questions about courses. For everybody else who signed up and would like to know more or maybe connect with the speakers, we will share a follow-up email and then we will put more information in the recording. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a nice day, evening, and yeah, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.